Joining me now to discuss all of this are my friends Danny Ceballos, super lawyer, criminal defense attorney, and an MSNBC legal analyst, and Hugo Lowell, political investigations reporter for The Guardian, who got up just for me to have this conversation on a Sunday. Danny, you know what time it is. I'm talking to a lawyer. Glasses are off. Let's get right into it. I want to start going into this week with respect to Michael Cohen's testimony and his cross-examination. What more do you think the defense has to do to create the notion of reasonable doubt?
Just continue to cast doubt on Michael Cohen's credibility, point out that he's a liar, point out that he has a motive. He has a book literally titled Revenge, that he's here making things up in order to get back at his former employer. And while I don't think that moment that we saw on Thursday where Todd Blanche confronted Michael Cohen with a phone call that he originally said was to talk to Trump about the Stormy Daniels payment, but now may have been about, and this to me, the reason for the actual call, it totally eclipsed the purpose of the cross-examination, that Cohen was actually calling a presidential candidate's security detail for help dealing with a phony phone caller, a 14-year-old phony phone caller. A lot of folks thought that was a gotcha moment. I don't think it would dealt a fatal blow to the prosecution at all. I think it's something they can easily come back from. But it is significant, and if I'm defense counsel, I'm absolutely using that in my closing. But they need to continue to hammer that he's a liar, but don't overdo it. Don't keep him on there too long and start boring the jury, because a bored jury will punish the lawyer.
That's absolutely correct. I do want to come back to you about the notion of closing arguments and what we can expect. But before we do that, Hugo, I want to turn to you. You're someone who always has the inside track. How is Camp Trump feeling about the way the trial is going, and also Campaign Trump feeling about the potential impact of a verdict here one way or the other?
It's really interesting. I think they think actually it's been going pretty well. Even on the first day of Todd Blanche's cross-examination, which by all accounts I think everyone thought was a little slow and was meandering, they thought it was actually a really good day. And I wonder if that's because, you know, if you consume enough Fox News, you kind of buy what they're selling. But I think in the main, they have to kind of hold hope. I mean, I think they went into this trial knowing that their best outcome was probably going to be a mistrial. Under no circumstances they go and think he was going to be acquitted. And so I think if you set your expectations low enough to begin with, then anything that comes after could be seen as a win.
Do you have any sense as to whether the campaign has made calculations around a guilty verdict or mistrial in terms of whether it changes their approach going forward?
Only insofar as they're looking at polling. You know, they've done a lot of internal polling on this trial so far and how it's fluctuated week in, week out. They have obviously kept their Republican base, their MAGA base. I think they were raising something like $1 million a day for the first 2 weeks of the trial. That was the numbers they were reporting. And then as for the internal polling, it's interesting, again, because you have a split of people who think, well, if he's convicted of all felony counts, then maybe I would be dissuaded from voting from him. But there are also kind of people who are undecided who think, well, if there's a mistrial or if he's maybe convicted on only some counts and others, then they might continue to support him.
Danny, let's go back to the courtroom and talk strategy. Most people don't realize this, but we know as trial attorneys, you really don't begin to put together your summation until you know what has come out during the trial. You have to have a strategy. Now that we've seen pretty much what the evidence is and how things have played out, give me your best themes for both the prosecution and the defense as we go into what could be the final week of this trial.
You're asking me to do something that will probably take 3 hours in 30 seconds. Here we go. First, you concede the transaction from Cohen to Daniels. You can't argue that.
Okay.
You concede the fact that Cohen was repaid by Trump with checks that were signed by Trump. You can't argue that. So instead, you focus on the burden beyond a reasonable doubt that the prosecution hasn't met it, and you point to Michael Cohen. You say the prosecution built their case around this convicted liar, someone who only wants revenge against Trump, and we caught him in a lie right in front of you. Then you focus on what I call the empty chair defense. Guess who's been notably absent? Allen Weisselberg.
Yeah.
They never called him. What were they afraid of? And his handwriting is literally and figuratively all over these exhibits. You literally saw his handwriting in the exhibits, in the most compelling exhibits with the most powerful evidence of falsification of business records. Where is he and what is the prosecution hiding? That, remember, many of you out there may be thinking, I don't know, I thought the prosecution explained that. Maybe they did. That's not the burden of the defense. They just need to create reasonable doubt in one or more of those jurors and maybe hopefully get one of them as an advocate back there in the jury room.
That Weisselberg piece is something that I've been talking about as well in terms of the defense being able to use it kind of sort of as a sword and a shield in terms of their defense and poking a hole or at least raising the specter of reasonable doubt. Okay, Hugo, last week we saw an army, a red tie army of sycophants, acolytes, and disciples show up and parrot talking points on behalf of Donald Trump, what he couldn't say. We saw the House Speaker himself, Mike Johnson, show up. What can we expect, do you think, this week in terms of the small army of Trump loyalists coming out of the woodworks to show their support? Is it going to be more or less? We're going to see much of the same. How's that going to work?
More of the same. I think, this has become, well, the surrogates who have come out in support of Trump in the courtroom it's been a bit of an interesting play because you have people who seem to be running for his VP pick. You seem to have people, allies on Capitol Hill. The one person you won't see is Melania Trump. I've been kind of told for weeks that there is no way that Melania will show up for various reasons. Don Jr. is not showing up because he's hunting and it's hunting season, so that's where his priorities are. But I think you can expect to see his usual, inner circle, people from his inner circle and his orbit being there through to the end of the trial. Is obviously going to be a big week, and I think everyone understands that.
Talk to me, Danny, about, is it a concern if you are the prosecution, do you think, about whether to raise an issue regarding the rhetoric that's taking outside of the courtroom at this point in the trial? Early on, you have the need to protect the integrity of the trial, and so you want to have this gag order strictly enforced and keep things on a short leash. At this point, if you bring that up and you try to connect what's being said outside the courtroom to Donald Trump, do you run the risk of creating a distraction that could potentially derail your case?
I think the prosecution decides not to make a big deal about it. At the beginning of the case, they were more than willing to file motions to get Trump on gag order violations, but that's because it was Trump. Here you have this plausible deniability, because unless Trump is passing them notes, go outside and give a press conference about what a travesty of justice this is, you're really not going to get any of those members of Congress or other politicians on violations of the gag order, because gag orders are always constitutionally suspect, and their enforceability depends on who you're trying to enforce it against. If it's a party or a lawyer, you're going to have a better chance. If it's a member of the press or somebody that's not even involved with the trial, good luck. That's a long shot. The prosecution here is just going to keep their head down. They're almost there. They're almost to the finish line. They're going to push ahead. I doubt they make any motion to complain about the spectacle that's going on outside. I don't even think they're even really thinking about it. They're too, when you're on, you know how it is. When you're on trial, you're focused on your case, and that's it. All this other stuff probably is just a distraction to them.
Putting 3 hours of a summation into 30 seconds is not something that most people can do, but it takes a super lawyer, and I knew I had one sitting on the panel today. Danny Cevallos and Hugo Lowell, thank you to you both for getting us started today on Sunday.